I had been doing reviews for individual episodes of The Mandalorian, and then it became obvious to me that this was a long game. So there were people who didn't like that the episodes were too short, people complaining there wasn't enough action, that the character never took his helmet off, so, that's stupid. There were people that complained, and it's certain complaints in and around it, and yet the reviews were really good overall. But I was getting more and more frustrated by reading some of these reviews where I'm like, people don't get it. They don't get what this show's trying to do. It is trying to restore mystique, mystery. We will talk about the new trilogy of Star Wars, and you know what the problem has been? Where were the big reveals? Where were the big surprises? There really weren't any. Finn, it felt like, might go somewhere, and didn't really. Who's Poe? We still have no idea who he is. And in general, there was no. I know people say, the Rey thing, and that was tacked on. That was something that was tacked on in the third movie. I don't think that if Rian Johnson had made the third movie, that would have been in there at all. And that's where the problem comes in. You don't have a single vision throughout that trilogy. So, and I was watching Cinemassacre, James Rolfe reviewing it, and James Rolfe, I thought, made a really good point about the new Star Wars movies. The biggest problem with episodes 7 through 9, while they're very well made movies, and I enjoy all three of them, they're not a trilogy. One doesn't really lead into the next like the originals did, or like the prequels did. The prequels were garbage, mostly. But they did lead one into the next. But these ones, it was just movies thrown together. It was just kind of a series of movies. And there was no large arc to the storylines. It's just sort of here, and there you go. There's our movies. Okay, we're done. Now, I've always kind of felt like Disney wanted to get that third trilogy out of the way so they could sort of mold Star Wars into something else. And take the Jedi Skywalker thing and just sort of take that out. George Lucas had a desire for this to be a intimate family dynamic. And I think most of us fans have if you've played Star Wars games like Knights of the Old Republic, things like that, there's this whole universe to explore. And Lucas's vision was just very, very centered on this one part, this one thing. And it was weird at times. There were certain things about the Lucas trilogies that just, they're weird. Jedi are weird. They're these sexless monks that, they can't love, but they're your heroes, and there's a lot of weird stuff in those, especially in the prequels. They really get into that, and it's like, what? Didn't they learn from how things work with churches? Anyways, but it's this weird sect, and it made me think. I don't think that George Lucas is great with the personal touches. I think if the prequels had been designed by Lucas, where he said, okay, here's the storyline, here's what I want, and somebody else had come in to write it and had done the dialogue and had smoothed out the rough edges and made it so it wasn't quite so everything is CGI and we can tell, so it looks fake. And if you'd added in some kind of a character arc to all of it as well, I think the prequels would have been a whole lot better. And I think these movies, if it had been a singular vision, might have been better. So I think part of what hurt them was that they did kind of throw away George Lucas when they got the rights. I've heard people complain about Kathleen Kennedy. Absolutely, she's the problem. Yes. Kathleen Kennedy is the problem. You can't be firing directors halfway through movies just because you're not happy about just knock it off. Let a director have their vision, and if you don't believe in the director's vision when you guys are having your meeting, then don't hire him. But once you've hired him, let him do what he's going to do with it. I am sure there were things in Empire Strikes Back that when Lucas saw them, he went, I don't think I would have done it that way, but all right. And Empire was fantastic, although, and it's been pointed out, at the time Empire came out, the reviews weren't great. Empire was kind of a dour movie. It wasn't a movie that was full of a lot of action. And there are plenty of kids right now that if they watched Empire and didn't know that it was the greatest movie in all of mankind's history, they wouldn't like it. They'd be like, that's boring. But it's Yoda. And can you believe Vader's Luke's father? I don't really care. So I think we have this emotional attachment to the original trilogy. I've talked about that before. So now I'm going to circle back to The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian is a Western. It is your spaghetti Western, and I think there was no episode that better explained this than the one that brought in Gina Carano, where there's a village being terrorized by and pillaged by a group that also had access to an ATST. And that episode really made the ATST terrifying again. And I thought that was fantastic. That they took an ATST, which is in a bunch of Star Wars movies. You'll just see, not the AT-ATs, but the little ones, the two legs. And you don't really think anything of them. They're not really a big deal. The most prominent they get is in the Battle of Endor and Return of the Jedi. And even then, they're just known as the one that you smash logs into and they explode. I remember thinking just how easy it was to destroy those things in Jedi and thinking, wow, so those things are easy to knock over. And Stormtroopers, you just throw a bunch of Muppets at them and they can't get back up. All right. Mandalorian made that terrifying. Now, I've completed the series, so I'm going to tell you this. If you haven't watched it, you need to. If you liked the original trilogy and you didn't like anything that came out after and you think Star Wars is dead, watch The Mandalorian. Star Wars isn't dead. It's just going through... It's not a reboot. It's a complete reimagining. The Mandalorian tells you about a race of people we heard nothing about. All we knew was Boba Fett, right? And then Jango Fett. We found out Boba Fett's dad was Boba Fett. But through Jango Fett and Boba Fett, we learned nothing in the prequels other than he likes to fight in the midst of asteroids with Jedi. I don't know. And then his head came off. And Boba Fett hates Jedis because he saw his dad get his head shot off, I guess. I don't know. Or it got clipped off. I don't remember. I don't even remember. It was just too stupid. I remember it was stupid going, that's what Jango died that way. And Boba sees it. And then, of course, Boba dies in a really stupid manner in Return of the Jedi. So I'm of the mind that it would be great if Boba Fett came back at some point in The Mandalorian. He can. In the comics, he wasn't dead. This is why when people get mad about the Emperor being alive, I'm like, the Emperor was alive in the expanded universe of the original Star Wars too. And most things come back, and the whole idea of, oh, there's another Death Star. Yeah, they did that in the books too in the expanded universe. Because it's a good threat. And the Empire knows it works. So of course they'd go back to that well. Makes total sense to me that they would try it or try something even bigger. So Starkiller Base to me wasn't really that much of a stretch. That they would try something even bigger. But again, there wasn't really a single vision there. Mandalorian there is. It's Jon Favreau. One vision. And before they were done season 1, he was already working on ideas for season 2. It's been greenlit for season 2. Obviously, it's fantastic. So if you haven't seen it, go watch it. Now, if you're ready for spoilers, we're going to get into some spoilers here. Last night's episode of Mandalorian, the last episode of the season, absolutely knocked it right out of the park. He's never taken off his helmet. He did. IG-11 removed his helmet because he had mortal wounds. And if he didn't remove his helmet, he was going to die. Now, Din Djarin, I believe is his name. Din Djarin. Absolutely great how they took a long time to flesh out his backstory, and now it's been fleshed out. He's not actually a Mandalorian. He was found by a Mandalorian, adopted by Mandalorians, and adopted their lifestyle. But he's not a Mandalorian per se. He is now a full-fledged Mandalorian. He's got the jetpack, which, thank God he's got the jetpack. That came in big in that battle at the end. Grand Moff Gideon was a fantastic addition. He's terrifying. And he's got a Darksaber. So, at the end of that episode, if you're wondering what was going on, you're like, oh, great, another lightsaber, a black lightsaber. The black lightsaber, which is called the Darksaber, Mandalorians had it, and this is in Star Wars Rebels. Mandalorians had it, and it was kind of like their commander, their chief, would have that sword. So the idea that the Imperials had wiped out most of their people in that society and chased them off their homeworld, Gideon totally would have grabbed that Darksaber and gone, I'll take that, that's mine. So the idea that Gideon has this Darksaber is absolutely fantastic in setting up season 2. I didn't like that Gina Carano and Carl Weathers didn't go with him. I thought, okay, we're going to have Mando and the crew. Mando went on his own, and they just went, this planet will be fine. And I turned to Yvonne and I said, how do they know Imperials aren't going to show up again? There's no such thing in Star Wars as, okay, you killed a bunch of Imperials. Well, now they won't come back. Well, they come back in greater numbers because they go, what's going on over there? So even though it's a fractured group, it's not the group that it was. We are going to end up seeing, I think, Imperials coming back to this planet. And the fact that they didn't check to make sure Gideon was dead. Gideon's not dead. So that was just like, well, his craft went down. I guess that's it for him. It's not. Go over and check. He's not dead. And of course there were Jawas and all that wonderful stuff. I love seeing Jawas. But the fact that now the Mando has to, or Din has to go to Yoda's homeworld. And now we get to see Yoda's homeworld and what his people are like. So we get to see what his homeworld is like. That's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited about that. And this is one of those nervous moments if you're a Star Wars fan where you're going, please don't screw this up. Please don't screw this up. But I look at everything the Mandalorian's done so far. And there were a lot of times where they would go from planet to planet and you wouldn't see the name of the planet. You have no idea. And they wouldn't even name it. They wouldn't even talk about it. And I thought, this is great. They're establishing all these new worlds. We're not finding out the names right now because it's not all that important. And at later times, in later seasons, we'll find out where these worlds are, what their names are, if we need to. Otherwise, we don't really need to. And it's following this character. And, of course, the adorable infant Yoda. It's not really Yoda, of course. I still think it's likely a clone, although they seem to shut that off, that it wasn't a clone. That the Imperials may have been trying to clone him, but he himself is not a clone. So there's some interesting questions to be answered about his origin and his ability to use the Force. He used the Force again last night. I watched it last night to repel the fire from a flame trooper. Terrifying. Just terrifying. That Gideon would go, yeah, just burn him out. And that didn't work out. And then, of course, they escape into the sewers. And they end up coming across the bunch of helmets from Mandalorians. So there are still some things that we don't know about his people and about how all of this fits together. I don't think we've seen the end of Gina Carano's character or Carl Weathers' character either. I certainly hope not. Gina Carano was made to play this role. She was made to be this rebellious former Imperial. And the way she calls them all imps, I'm like, that's great. Imps. I like that. That's good. And so there are a lot of things that I liked about the character. There were a lot of things I liked about the whole way this series was run. I think the episodes were the exact right length. I think there was the right mix of action and suspense. Because in this episode, when all of the action's going on, even then it's stripped down. So IG-11 sacrifices himself so those stormtroopers can't capture Yoda and the crew, right? And then you have a single TIE fighter fighting with them on the ground. And that's when Mando figures out, all right, I gotta take to the air. I gotta get this jetpack on my back, take to the air, and off we go. It was great. And I thought, this is the payoff. This is what we've been waiting for. Everything led to this moment. Everything led to this moment. Every character led to this. So I'm going to go back and rewatch it. I'm going to rewatch all 8 episodes. It was absolutely fantastic. This is how Star Wars is supposed to work. And this is where I come back to people complaining about the new movies. It needs to be a single vision. So if Disney decides we're going to do another trilogy, then give it to one person. Make it a singular vision. Stop shopping it around to different directors. This isn't like other Disney properties where it's not a series, so it doesn't matter. You can use different directors and go different directions. Not with Star Wars. The only way Star Wars even starts to work is you have to have a singular vision from one episode to the end. So, for instance, I would believe in Force Awakens that Palpatine would show up in Rise of Skywalker if there was any hint of it anywhere. There isn't. There's nothing. So the idea, and I think what got me was when seeing an interview and they go, yeah, well, we thought it'd be great. We thought you should have the Emperor in there at the end. That's a really crappy reason to do it. You do it because it's the storyline. You don't do it because, we thought it would be cool to see it on the screen. So you come up with an idea going into Force Awakens of, okay, and at some point I'm probably going to do up a board where I say, all right, here's how I would do a Star Wars trilogy. And I'll go about it and I'll say, here's how I would do a Star Wars trilogy. And this is the way that because I wrote science fiction novels for decades. And when I would write, and I did write a trilogy of them, and each book would lead into the next. And by the end of that third book, that's where the big battle takes place. There's no big battle in the first book. There's no big battle in the second one either. It's in the third one that I go, all right, everybody's set now and go. So, and I made sure every shot mattered. So if a shot's fired by a massive warship, then it's going to destroy whatever it hits. None of this crap of, our shields are at 85%. No. It needs to feel like it's a threat. So if they get a shot off, you're probably done. That kind of thing. And so that was kind of how I approached it. And I think that's the important thing, is to have a singular. And again, I didn't just write the first part and then go, hey, do you guys want to write the second part? Come on, take my characters. Come on. Because other people won't understand your characters as well as you do. This is why when people got mad at Last Jedi, I went, well, Rian Johnson doesn't write for Luke Skywalker. That's George Lucas. I may not like what the prequels did, but George Lucas knows Luke Skywalker. Rian Johnson should have been on the phone talking to George Lucas and saying, so what would Luke be doing right now? And if Lucas, I don't know George Lucas and his state of mind at this point, if Lucas is still concerned about Star Wars, he would sit down and have a nice conversation with him along the lines of, here's what Luke would have been doing 20 years after Return of the Jedi. Here's how I envisioned he would be behaving. Here's what I think. And Rian Johnson should then say, okay, I want Luke in my movie to resemble what George would have had, because then he would match up much better with the Return of the Jedi, Luke Skywalker. And that's where singular vision's important. And that's why The Mandalorian works. It's all new characters. We don't have to worry about ties to any other character. Even though there's a baby Yoda in there, it's not Yoda. This is not the creature that taught Luke about the Force. This isn't the creature that they keep making awesome songs with on how it should have ended with their bad lip readings. Or no, a bad lip reading. And How It Should Have Ended has their own Yoda and Luke and all that other stuff too. There's some really good stuff on YouTube that's Star Wars related that Star Wars had nothing to do with. But especially the new It's My Stick. I've listened to that like 5 or 6 times already. It's absolutely fantastic. Anyways, that's off to the side. Maybe they should be writing Star Wars movies because they seem to get it. And that's the trick. You have people writing Star Wars right now that don't get it. I think Jon Favreau does. I think he loves it. I think it shows in every shot in this series. It shows in every moment in this series. He loves Star Wars. And for that reason, I love The Mandalorian. Can't recommend it enough. If you haven't watched it, I've got into some spoilers. I haven't got into all of them. Because why would I want to do that when I want anybody to watch it who can? I think, and I've seen people saying, it's the one thing that Star Wars fans aren't arguing about. Right, because it's a singular vision. And it makes sense. This character makes sense. You could plunk him right into the middle of Empire Strikes Back, and he would work. It absolutely works. And it's really well done. And I think there's a lot more action in this than some people might think, because the action scenes are shorter than you might see them in other action movies, and they're more to the point. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below as always. What are you looking forward to in Season 2? What do you think's going to happen? What might the world of Yoda look like? Might it be completely wiped out by Imperials? And does this mean that Mando is Baby Yoda's dad? I kind of think it does. That's what they said. And it's his kid. I think that's actually really heartwarming. I think that's really, really heartwarming. And it's made for a really good show. And the character, the Mandalorian himself, I think we're starting to see more and more depth there. It was always there. You reveal it slowly. Why in episode 1 Do we tell absolutely everything so there's no mystery? Enjoy the mystery. It's what makes movies work, and it's what makes good series work, is the mystery. Lost got stupid when they started trying to answer some questions. Would have been better off answering nothing. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. I will talk to you guys again very, very soon.